Hey, y'all, welcome. Just wanted to pop on today and talk about a couple things. Last week, that was a busy day on the Hill for everybody introducing their bills to committees and having testifying and whatnot. And Mary Fosse is here in the 38th district, and she was wanting to get a legislation passed that would make it so local police knew and had better boundaries about what they can and can't do. And also, as far as like making ICE reveal themselves and in the whole gambit, right? Trying to give support to local law enforcement to make sure that these people aren't participating in brutalities that they don't want to, they don't have a clear line. And so, the ranking member on the chair of this committee is Jenny Graham, who is a Republican. And I'm going to play this interaction for you, and then we're going to have a conversation. Or I guess we'll have a monologue because I don't have anybody else to talk to. Let me see here. Screen. Doop.
Move on to the next bill related to law enforcement interaction with federal officials, House Bill 2648.
We want to go into caucus, please.
All right. Committee will go into recess briefly. Okay, the committee will come back to order. We're in public hearing. We're going to open the hearing on House Bill 2648, please. We'll have a staff briefing and then sponsor testimony.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. For the record, Lena Langer, counsel to the committee. House Bill 2648 concerns state and local law enforcement interactions with federal immigration enforcement officials. By way of background, a general authority Washington peace officer is a fully compensated and elected, appointed, or employed officer of a general authority Washington law enforcement agency who is commissioned to enforce state criminal laws generally. A limited authority Washington peace officer is a fully compensated officer of a limited generally. A limited authority Washington peace officer is a fully compensated officer of a limited authority Washington law enforcement agency empowered by that agency to detect or apprehend violators of the laws in some or all of the limited subject areas for which that agency is responsible. State law provides a non-exhaustive list of limited authority law enforcement agencies, and for that list, please see the bill analysis. And Corey already briefed the United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement. So turning to House Bill 2648, when an on-duty general authority or limited authority Washington peace officer encounters an individual the peace officer has reasonable suspicion is a United States Immigration and Customs Enforcement employee conducting immigration enforcement activities, the peace officer must activate their body-worn camera if equipped with such, activate their dash camera if they are in their official vehicle and the vehicle is equipped with such, immediately report the encounter to their employing agency so the agency may notify the community, and document and report the encounter with their employing agency. When documenting and reporting such activities, the peace officer must attempt to contact the reporting party, if any, confirm the identity of the individual the peace officer suspects is conducting immigration enforcement by requesting official identification if safe and feasible, and refrain from taking actions that may escalate the situation. The Attorney General's office must represent a peace officer in any proceeding that arises from the officer's actions taken in compliance with these requirements. If the action was taken in good faith while the peace officer was acting within their scope of employment, the state must identify and hold harmless a peace officer for any judgment or fine levied against the peace officer in any proceeding arising from actions taken in compliance with these requirements if the action was taken in good faith while the peace officer was acting within their scope of employment. And that concludes my remarks, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you very much. We have one of our panel members with us. Please present.
Thank you, Chair Goodman, Ranking Member Graham, and members of the committee. My name is Mary Fosse. I am the state rep for the 38th Legislative District, and I am bringing this bill forward today because it is about protection, both for our law enforcement as well as for our community. This bill came out of the central question is, what would you do in that moment? And so over the interim and as of late, I've been asking that question a lot to community and law enforcement and friends that I have in the profession and asking them, what would you do in that moment if you were faced with some of the things that we've seen on video and some of the things that we've seen out there happening in these other states? And what I've been hearing back is a little bit of heartbreak about the activities that they're witnessing. And I've heard a little bit of confusion about where state law ends and federal supremacy begins, and a fear of anything that they may do may result in harming their job, in their future, in their family, but yet this desire to protect the community in that same moment. So it's not my intent that this policy take on that foundational question of from our nation, where the federal supremacy and every sort of argument and state law come in. It's more of helping clarify that in the face of masked intruders breaking down your door, you have somebody to call. And so it's a forward-thinking measure to prepare for any potential clash that we may have if we see ICE's more aggressive tactics and civil rights violating tactics come here to our state that we're seeing in some of the other states displayed. And so with clear guidance, our law enforcement can avoid becoming unwitting agents of civil rights violations, or even worse, not being there when our community needs it the most. And I know my officers that I have worked with and spoken with, that they don't want to be considered complicit in those actions. And they want to protect their communities, and they want to build community trust, not further break it. And so these are a little bit different times. Long history we've heard with our law enforcement of being able to work on serious criminal charges when it comes to drug enforcement and other things that really help the community, but tactics have changed. We heard previously about their training has been drastically shortened. The bar for hiring has been drastically lowered, and it is not the same as it used to be. These are very different times. So our constituents deserve safety. Our officers deserve to also be protected in those actions when they want to protect our community. And that's really what this bill is aiming to do. There are going to be a lot of changes to it. We are working with a lot of different stakeholders. There are elements of it that are going to be taken out. I'm working closely with Chair Goodman, law enforcement, and stakeholders and those impacted in the community to try to make sure that we get this down, narrow, and fixed. And I hope that you will support this effort.
Great. Thank you very much for bringing it forward. Yeah, the chair recognizes the ranking member.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So first of all, we definitely disagree as far as, civil rights being violated, that type of thing. What I'm finding particularly concerning is the only talking about one side of this issue and ignoring the crime victims in this state that are being raped, robbed, murdered, assaulted by people that are illegal foreign nationals. What about their rights? What about their right to be safe in this state? I'm just kind of asking, do you think if our state wasn't a sanctuary state and we did just like all the other states that aren't having these issues because their law enforcement is allowed to work with ICE doing their lawful duties, which is a mandate of our U.S. Constitution, that we secure our borders?
Question?
Yes, I'm asking the question, do you agree that if we weren't a sanctuary state and our officers were allowed to actually work with ICE doing their lawful duties, we wouldn't be facing this right now,
It's
like
very
other
interesting
states?
that you talk about victims, because the victims I'm seeing is Renee. I'm seeing mothers and nurses being murdered. And I'm surprised that I am not seeing a bigger outreach of support for the Second Amendment when they go after somebody who is lawfully carrying their gun, who is just simply at a protest, exercising their rights. They're gone after and murdered.
Yeah, you mean like Lake and Riley? You mean like all of these other women who are the ones that absolutely are ignored?
This is not relevant to the bill. let's have testimony. We only have a few more minutes. We're going to call on those who took the time to come here first. Thank you very much for presenting the bill. Let's hear from, is Dion Glover here? And
Thank you, Representative Fosse, for holding her feet to the fire about what is happening in this moment, and wanting to try to provide an umbrella of protection around everyone that's involved in this, including the police, because not all cops are bad. They're just not. I know there are a lot of bad ones, and the bad ones comes from the culture, and it comes from the racist history and the history of wanting to oppress the labor movement. Like, I fucking get it, okay? And I come from a law enforcement family, and I come from a military family, and we had guns, and I went hunting in the whole 9 yards. That doesn't define who I am. It just is my life experiences and what I know. And I know that she is trying to do a good thing by providing an umbrella of protection over all the people that are involved and that are getting hurt. And I think it's really not surprising and quite disappointing that Jenny Graham decides to not really address the situation. And of course, she wants to talk about both sides. Like, what's both sides here? Like, I don't know a person that is pro-criminal when it comes to someone coming into our country that doesn't try for the process, that is a criminal, that has a criminal background, that is, yes, I want those people gone. But guess what? The man that murdered Laken Riley is the small amount of, it's like a minute part of the population of the overall picture of who abusers and rapists and murderers are, because it's more the demographic of the men that you're surrounded by every day, Jenny Graham, and that you align yourself with to uphold the patriarchy and keep everybody else oppressed. You are a water carrier for abuse. I have not seen anything yet out of conservatives and conservative women that tells me otherwise. You don't care who you suck up to, just as long as you think you're protected from the very abuse that ends up happening to all of these other people. It will come for you too. It probably already has, like a lot of women. You go through that shit, and some women align themselves with power of men in order to prevent future abuse. That's why you see, in my opinion, people of color do it too, is because you no longer want to be a victim, and sometimes aligning with your oppressor keeps you from being a different kind of victim than you used to be. You're still being oppressed. You're still not free. You're not free to exercise your power unless you're kissing the ass of a certain demographic. So I know it's a little side tangent, but it is what it is. But Laken Riley, here's what I find interesting, and it kind of is I'm going to bring it into a little Bill Maher that was on Friday night. If Laken Riley had been raped and been impregnated and survived, would you be there for Laken Riley when she didn't want to have her rapist baby? Or say she kept the pregnancy, but then it was failing in Texas, she would have died, because it's happening. It's been happening, and it's getting worse. So I hate it when women like you and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Nancy Mace and all of the rest of the water carriers for white male power in this country invoke and bastardize a memory of a young woman that was killed. The shade of the man does not matter. The problem is the men, because femicide is a worldwide issue. And people like Jenny Graham just continue to perpetuate abuse and make it worse. These people that are ICE agents, of course, none of these folks want to talk about. They're January 6ers. We all know this. This was his private militia that he was going to pardon as soon as he got back in power. And how many of them have charges for assault and rape and battery and drunk driving and, all the good Christian things, right? You don't care about women. And I really, really, really wish women would quit buying into this narrative that you do care. You don't care. Look at the white women in Texas that have had to stand up and say, "Oh my God, I almost died." Look at the woman that was I think in Iowa, her husband was a Ukrainian immigrant. They're conservative. And she almost died because she couldn't get abortion care because it was fetal demise and it was going to kill her too. You don't care about us. Mary Fosse is great, and she has lived the struggle, and she's just trying to do the best for the people in her community in this state. And I'll tell you, there's things that really bother me sometimes about Democrats and Democratic policies. I mean, I don't know if I necessarily even align myself with the Democratic Party because they didn't understand the rules of the game for a long time now. And the reason that we're here is because they're hopeful, where I find the conservative non-liberal ideology is the terminal failure is what they're going for. They want to bring on the end of the world because of their biblical narratives that they largely believe in. That's why they're doing what they're doing. That's why they want the embassy in Jerusalem. And, they want to bring about the fucking end times and have the perfect race. These people are fucking crazy, and the Democrats don't know how to fight back against it because they're too afraid of talking about the things that really need to be talked about to wake people up. And I'll talk about more of those things later. Of course, one of them, the biggest part of it, has to do with religion. It has way too much power in our government and way too much power in our state. Sorry, another little side tangent for you. But I really hope people wake up and realize that this Republican narrative of we care about women and we're going to talk about people like Lake Riley, while at the same time taking away the rights of women so they can't even manage their own bodies if she happened to survive and was raped and had a pregnancy that she did not want. You guys would have turned your back on her. And if she would have gotten an abortion, you'd have called her a baby killer. Don't fucking tell me you care about women. You don't care about anything again except your goddamn power. So that leads me to Marjorie Taylor Greene. She was on Bill Maher this last weekend. When I came home, my madre who was rehabbing at my house after a fractured pelvis. She was watching it, and Marjorie Taylor Greene and Joe Scarborough were talking about FACE Act violations. And for those of you that don't know, the FACE Act was brought about in the 90s by Bill Clinton under his administration. And it was the freedom to access clinic entrances. But of course, because churches are so persecuted in religion in general, that it had to include churches also. So he was talking, him and Marjorie Taylor Greene were talking about how he just didn't know what it was, which I find to be, this is Joe Scarborough, which I find to be dishonest and abysmal. I mean, it was a huge thing. And the reason, so Marjorie Taylor Greene was going off about how what happened in Minnesota, those people entered the church, it was a violation of the FACE Act, blah, 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 blah. While these other people that have been arrested that are anti-abortion are just simply peacefully outside praying. No, bitch. That's not why we got the FACE Act. We got the FACE Act because of clinic bombings and doctors being murdered and people being killed. I mean, in 2016, Robert Deere Jr. shot up the Planned Parenthood in Colorado Springs and people died. Why? Because the baby's Jesus. Because the fake David Dillardin tapes were out there trying to say that, baby parts are being sold and all this bullshit. And it was a fucking lie. And it drove a crazy religious man to go kill a bunch of people at a fucking Planned Parenthood. That's why we have the fucking FACE Act. And it's never been honestly utilized or enforced like it should be. And Trump just pardoned all these people. So Marjorie Taylor Greene was trying to say that the peaceful abortion protesters is bullshit. They've chained doors shut. The reason that like Coleman Boyd and those Operation Save America fucking lunatics and the POW people, the progressive anti-abortion uprising lunatics, those people aren't calm people. I've gone up against those people. They're not calm. They're physical. They barricade doors at abortion clinics. That's what they were arrested for. Lauren Hardy stole body parts. They stole medical waste. Other people's pregnancies that were terminated, they took that shit like ghouls and held it and showed it on camera because they want people to think that, look at these women. They're just shit canning their pregnancies in the 9th month. And you're not at all ever thinking, can you imagine what that poor woman had to go through in order to make that decision and pay for it and get transportation? Because I hate to tell you people that don't know your ass from a hole in the ground when it comes to reproductive health and healthcare and abortion. You just don't trot into some place in the 9th month and go, you know what? Fuck this fetus. I want a martini. Get this baby out of me. It's just birth at that point. Nobody's going that far into their pregnancy and terminating it just because. They have a name picked out. They have a nursery. They have a life imagined with their child, and that is gone. And those fucking ghoulish bitches decided to capitalize on other people's pain for their own benefit, because that's who these people are. That's when they talk about Lake Riley or any other bullshit. They're not talking about Adriana Smith, who was used as a fucking incubator in a hospital to bore a child as her body was decomposing. I never ever want to hear again, by the way, that a mom had a glass of wine, she should be shunned. That baby had been more drug exposed than any other baby ever. They tried to make a 9-week pregnancy with a brain dead woman happen. And they finally had to take it because he was feeding off of his mother's corpse. Now he's got a fucking trach in his throat. Do you know how many tens of millions of dollars have been spent on this science experiment and this poor woman's family? These are the people. This is Jenny Graham, who supports the regime, this shit. Any Republicans that still support this after what has happened, the dead women, the Epstein files. Yeah, I don't hear Jenny Graham being super concerned about the Epstein files, just like outside the Republican office today here in Snohomish County, where we protest every Monday. And you're welcome to join us, by the way. The dude came out, and of course we gave him shit, and he basically said he doesn't think that the Epstein files are real because it's not all over the news. I guess he only watches Fox News or Newsmax or any place that just doesn't ever talk about this, because it's literally talked about on an international level. And this old man had the audacity to sit there and claim that it's not on the news. Nobody knows about that. We're the only ones that know about the Epstein files. It's batshittery. Anyhow, there are good legislators here in this state. There are things that I know a lot of people are angry about, and I don't like either. Like people are, gold's at a really high rate right now, but Washington State just passed their law that there's going to be a 10% tax on gold sales. That's fucking crap. But I know why they're doing it. And things like this should be repealed, though. I think, honestly, it's probably not going to stand, but you people need to acknowledge something. We send about $155 billion, with a B, not an M, to the federal government in our taxes every year. We only get $100 million of that back, and that's when we're being, governed under a federal administration that isn't like this authoritarian money-grabbing regime, right? We're being penalized. So not only do we not get the full measure of our money back to help us, wouldn't that extra $55 billion be nice? Because that goes to red states to subsidize, like the farmers that just had their little baby bailout again for $12 billion because they voted for the wrong fucking person. Baby, that's our money. We're one of 13 states that pays more into the federal system than what we get out of it. But yet you're mad at state Democrats for passing these laws, as much as I don't like them either, because now we're being penalized because we're not doing what the fucking Führer regime wants. You need to own and understand that. You also need to own and understand how ignorant you are about the government, of how it's ran, and where the money comes from. Because I was on Save Washington State, which I'm pretty sure they booted me out of the group once I started throwing them some truths. It's a Facebook group called Save Washington State. And what's hilarious about it is the same things I just mentioned. These people crow about socialism. Oh, it's so terrible. We're just socialist. Baby, the whole country's socialist. Unfortunately, it's just a little too influenced by capitalism. Because again, we give tax money. That's what makes all these rich people rich. That's our money. That's our money. It is our labor that generates that money that we send to the federal government, that then it gets doled out to people in need in other states. So really, if you don't like the fact that this is happening, then maybe Washington should secede, and we'll keep that $155 billion here. And we'll let places like Ohio and Iowa and Nebraska, which is on the brink of failure. This shit with the farmers is only going to get worse. Those red states are subsidized by states that fund it. I mean, it seems like that's the answer then. because then we'll be just fine. Like there would be no reason to tax any of us at that point. Like as far as like how we're taxed now, because we'd have lots more money. We wouldn't be going, oh, well, now I have to like, and I don't have control over that. If I had it my way, all the red states would have to survive on their own because they think their policies are so great. They're shoving them down the rest of our throats. A lot of this shit that we're seeing that has impacted us, it originated in southern states. Mississippi with the Dobbs decision. You should go see how Mississippi is ran, how much they get in federal tax dollars and how much they don't actually do for their citizens. It's really, really fucking abysmal. I have a friend that's from Mississippi, lived there her whole life and now lives in Long Beach. And the stark differences are they're so apparent if you even want to notice or pay attention. They survive because of our tax dollars. Your mom and your dad that are on Medicare or Medicaid and didn't make a lot of money, baby, that's socialism. I have a girlfriend that it's been a hard relationship for a long time. Her husband's a hardcore RFK Trumper. His dad was like a part-time barber. I mean, he wasn't really that much of a financial producer. The mom was, even still. And several years ago, his dad had like a stroke or something like that. And the parents are living on their property in a little fifth wheel. And so in a rural part of our community, and the dad went into the hospital and then went into a nursing home and has literally been there ever since. We're talking probably, this is hundreds and hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars at this point after like 7 years. Did he work hard enough in his life to justify him being in that facility, having all that money spent? I don't think so. But I'm also a human being that cares about what happens to other people. So if that's the care that's needed and needs to be provided in society, fine. But if I take the logic of my friend's husband and apply it to his situation, he would have his dad, that he doesn't get along with that well, from what I recall, moving into the trailer with the mom, and they would try to have to figure out how to take care of this man. Or they'd have to go into like a shag apartment facility or something. A lot of people are lucky that not every state is a familial state. It's a weird word to say. It basically means that if your parent does not have a place to live, the system is not obligated to take care of them as their family member. You are. Now, can you imagine if there's really bad families? Can you imagine the elder abuse that's going to occur as this drain of our public money that we have put into the system continues to find its way into pockets of rich fuckers like Trump and his friends? It's going to be a really fucking hellscape if we don't get people like I see on Save Washington State Facebook to understand what they're advocating for themselves. They're advocating for less freedom, less resources, less education opportunities for their children, less social services for the people in our communities that might not have anybody else, that have horrible families that they would be in danger if they lived with them. Like if my brother had to take care of my mom right now, she'd be dead. People think, oh, who's going to take care of you? Because I don't have kids. Who's going to take care of you when you don't have kids? Well, if it was up to my brother and I wasn't here, he wouldn't take care of anybody. He'd just want them to die so he can get the money and fucking go do more drugs. I mean, you're so delusional, man. I want your family to have as much as every other family. And there's enough to go around if the appropriate people were taxed. And you're just as mad about it, but you have other reasons that you don't like liberalism. You don't like same-sex marriage. You don't like the fact that a lot of liberals are secular and we're not religious. I'm an atheist. I don't believe in spirituality or any of that shit. I believe tangible things. Religion should be private. You guys don't like that. It makes you angry that other people want to decide to do things outside of your purview. Like, I don't care if you have guns, but I care if you're a fucking lunatic and an abuser. My uncle had a bazillion guns and was contacted by the FBI on more than one occasion for buying automatic weapons in the 80s on his fucking gold card in Vegas. So, I mean, I am not a liberal that is like not aware of how conservatives feel. Half of my family that I love dearly lives in Eastern Washington, but I struggle with them too. And they have brown kids. I mean, it's so easy when you start taking resources away from people bit by bit at a time, outsourcing jobs to southern states out of places like, Detroit, because they could pay slave labor wages down there. And then when those people down there wanted to unionize, well, then they passed, right to work state laws. So it made it so it was harder to unionize. And then when this, after we got NAFTA, which was a shitty deal in a lot of ways. And that's why you had the WTO riots and shit like that in 99. Like, everybody knew that this was eventually going to implode because it was going to allow for large corporations to send their products overseas to get made for pennies on the dollar in a fucking sweatshop factory and then sell them back here at the same price, if not more. And they're making tons of money off of it. Chipping away at jobs, chipping away at healthcare. It was fucking Nixon that, made it so healthcare could be a profitable thing and not something that was for the public good. So then you had less people that are healthy, and it creates more burden on the system. God, as a liberal, I want you conservative people to realize this. If you literally put down your biblical bullshit about other people's lives and just said, what's important to you? You mean to tell me healthcare is not important to you and your family? You mean to tell me having services that'll come in and help with mom and dad, or a developmentally challenged child that so you can get a break wouldn't be important to you? Because that's a fucking crock of shit. And let me tell you why. I don't know how many women I see on TikTok talking about their special needs kids, and oh fuck, oh dear. They have nothing. They have no time for themselves. Their health is failing. They are struggling. You mean to tell me you don't want help with that? That you don't want help with education? Like, why don't we want a healthy, educated, critical thinking population? Why? Why do we want to continue to enable and allow people to lay the future of all of us in the hands of folks that believe in a God is going to solve shit? Over and over again. I mean, the world should prove you that that's not true. You think people weren't praying when they were in concentration camps? You think they ain't praying when they're in concentration camps right now? Of course they are. People pray every day. They still die of cancer. Their kid still dies. That's just the way life is. It has nothing to do with a God. But we need to quit empowering the people and giving merit to folks that hang their critical decision-making process and how we live our lives on those kinds of beliefs. I know I kind of went around the gambit today, but it's so much. And I get so disillusioned when I see people that live in my state and comment like they're fucking stupid. I know you're not dumb. You cannot be that dumb. You have been fed a line of shit regarding what socialism is. The countries that are socialist and take care of their people are happier, they're healthier, they have a better work-life balance, they have better families, people have more opportunities, children are better off. But they fund their lives with their tax dollars. They also know that they'll be taken care of. Like the pro-birth people in this country, the anti-abortion, pro-birth only people, you should see the models in Europe and push for that. I mean, how would you not? Like, if you want to stay home and raise your children because that's what's important to you, I think that tax dollars should help you to be able to do that. More women in families would have babies if they had help, but there's no fucking help. And nobody wants to pay for help. And then you're demonized about getting help instead of like, this is the human condition and we all have to pay for it. And we pay for it in one way or another. Penny and pound, people. The rich people couldn't survive without our money and our labor. And they try to keep us divided because there is a million times more of us than there are of them. And if we're not united, they can do anything they want to us. My conservative people in my life and anybody that's listening to this, I fucking hate that you are not wanting to see this for what it is. That you're the old man down at the Republican office that literally bald-faced looked at me and said, if the files were real, it would be all over the news. I don't understand you. But I honestly, to the core of my being, know if we had a generation of secular liberal policy that put humans first, you would have a lot less hate for people that aren't like you, because you would be so much happier in your own life and not being angry about all the things that all the people over there get that you're mad at because you think you should get them too. Everybody would have them. And nobody asked to be born into this world. And so we as humans need to take a humanist perspective and make sure that we're all provided for, and that we understand also what limitations are of what we can provide in a healthy way while still taking care of everybody and the only fucking rock we can live on in this big, vast universe. So I know it was a long one. Everybody take care, y'all. And it's really hard out there right now. It's really hard for a lot of people. And if you want to talk, let me know. Love to have you on. Bye-bye.